Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, Infone, and with Infone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at infone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm fired up as you can see in his background. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's going to be a lot of energy here because this guest knows his stuff. He's the real deal. If you want to grow your business, this is the man you need to talk to. Mark, welcome to the call.
Steve, happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience today.
How about welcome to the show, too? I said call, but it's all the same.
It's a call. It's a show. The point is that we're speaking to each other and to an audience. So the technology is sort of incidental.
I love it. Well, we talked about a few things before the show. One I love is culture. You teach that. How important is culture for a business?
Yeah, it is. It's an incredibly important one. And what is heartening to see is that for I've been doing what I've been doing for 40 plus years. And what I've noticed over the years is that everybody will pretty much acknowledge that culture is kind of important. It's sort of like everybody saying, well, yeah, green grass is good, right? But we don't think about how you make green grass, or the sky is blue and isn't that nice? With culture, what I've noticed in the last few years is that there's more serious attention now paid to culture, as opposed to assuming it is what it is and we have to live with it. So much so that one of the things I've been advocating with my clients and just in general when I do talks like this is to emphasize the importance of making sure that the culture of an organization is by choice rather than chance. I like to say bluntly that leaving your culture to chance is like giving whiskey and the car keys to teenage boys. You're going to end up with some very unlikely or some likely very unpleasant consequences. So leaving your culture to chance is not something you want to do because the consequences are too dangerous, candidly. So you have to really go out and make a culture by choice, and you can do that. It's the choices you make. It's the people you put into leadership positions. It's how you talk to your employees, and what you set for expectations.
Expectations are so important. What's a negative impact of culture, a negative culture in a company?
Negative impact is, well, first of all, it typically will show up very quickly in terms of the customer experience. If you have a toxic, ugly culture, it won't take long for it to bubble up and surface to the public or be outward facing to the public. So bad consequence number one is a customer experience and or a reputation you're going to develop. You can't hide it. You can't keep yourself from ultimately exposing it. So that's number one. And then because it's going to impact the customer experience, ultimately it's going to impact results. You're also going to have a difficult time attracting and keeping good talent. I think we all know that, the disgruntled, actively disengaged employee is the one that can create a toxic environment. And that's why they can't be tolerated, because a toxic environment is part of what creates a culture that's not a good one. So you want to make sure that you have a positive culture, because you greatly elevate the chances that you're going to have engaged, supportive, and connected people who want to stay rather than leave, because it's a pleasant environment as opposed to a toxic or an ugly one.
Yeah. Toxic's not good. Customer experience is the whole thing for a company when that's negative. We all know as customers, me and you, we have another experience. We're not going to go back, and we're going to tell a lot of people about it, or just
absolutely.
one person. So
yeah, I like to sort of distill the whole customer experience down to three different categories. There are three different kinds of customer experiences that you can deliver to an audience or to your customers. One is what I call the neutral experience. I went to a restaurant. The meal was fine. It was good. I may come back someday. That's a neutral experience. I got service. I got fed. I'm no longer hungry. That's fine. I like Coke, but I'll drink Pepsi. It's kind of an example of a neutral experience. The second experience is what I call the disturb and distress experience. And that's the one where it's so unpleasant, so painful that to your point, you tell everybody about it. And it's the unpleasant disturb and distress experiences are the ones that really hurt an organization. And those are the old notion that bad news gets around the world before good news has a chance to put his shoes on in the morning. Same thing happens here. So a disturb and distress experience is the experience you obviously want to avoid. Telltale signs are, that was an awful experience. I'm going to tell everybody I'm never coming back. It was just a poor, bad experience. I didn't feel like I was welcome or appreciated, which, by the way, is the number one reason, based on actual hard evidence or research, the number one reason why people leave a business as a customer and go someplace else to buy is because nearly 7 out of 10 times the reason is because they didn't feel welcome or appreciated.
And that's a simple
the next highest or most frequent reason for leaving at only about 14 or 15% is a dissatisfaction with the actual product and service itself. And price doesn't even show up on the top of the list anywhere.
Amazing.
So that's the second. So there's service. Obviously, the preferred customer experience is the surprise and delight experience. Wow, that was a great experience. Memorable. I'm going to tell everybody. I'm definitely coming back. And quite often it comes down to little tiny things. I'll give you a very quick story, if I may, about a personal experience I had that was the essence of a surprise and delight customer experience. Several years ago, I had an opportunity to go to a department store called Von Maur. They're out of Iowa, and they have stores in the Chicago area where I am. And I went there and I was looking for a particular dress sock that I wanted to have. I liked these particular dress socks. So I went to the men's section and I asked the sales guy, you have these kind of socks? And he said, let me go check. So he went in the back and he checked and he came out and he says, unfortunately, sir, we don't have any in stock, but I can ship them to you. Would you like that? I said, that would be fine. So I paid for them, gave him my address, went home. Several days later, a package arrived and it was wrapped for shipping. So I open it up. Inside is a gift box from Von Maur. Open up that box and there's tissue, and I open up the tissue just like it's a gift. And there are my socks that I ordered. And on top of it is a white envelope with my name handwritten on it with a little note card inside. So I opened it up and it was a personal handwritten note from the person who picked and packed my order at the warehouse, thanking me for my order and my business. That's an example of and the other essence of a surprise and delight experience is one that's unexpected. You unexpectedly please people. Very memorable. I have never forgotten that. It's probably my best example or the essence of a surprise and delight experience.
Do you work with companies?
Proving it can be done.
Yeah. Do you work with companies on this? Sounds like this is something you have a little expertise in.
Yeah. The whole key is making sure that we're trying to increase the frequency of those surprise and delight experiences and completely eliminate, obviously, the disturb and distress ones and minimize the neutral ones.
Culture and leadership. We talked about leadership before the show. Yeah. They go hand in hand, don't they?
Yes, they do. In fact, the number one influencer of culture is the attitudes and behaviors of leaders. What's important to them, their actions, what they reinforce, where they allocate resources and where they don't. All of those things have a direct and huge impact on culture. So the number one influencer of culture in an organization is the ability of leaders and managers to create that culture by choices, like we talked about. So yeah, it's critically important. Yeah.
What's the mistake leaders do tied to culture?
Couple things. Number one, not having enough dialogue and reinforcing the core values of the organization and the mission and the vision. And I would say of those three, especially not having enough dialogue around core values. And core values, if you think about it, are the DNA that tell you what the organization is all about, what you believe in, what are your ideals, what's not negotiable in terms of what we do. That's your DNA. And quite often, a lot of organizations don't emphasize enough what their core values are. And even worse, a lot of organizations build everything backwards. You should always start with your DNA, just like an organism, right? An organism is defined by its DNA. You need to do the same thing with your organization as opposed to being an organism per se. And I've seen a number of organizations that create a mission and a vision, and they say, well, we probably should have some core values, so let's plug some in. Doing it backwards. Start with having core values and communicate and talk about them a lot. And then the second tip as a leader to make sure that you're avoiding that poor culture is reinforcing those and having a dialogue and listening to what people have to say. I like to say that one of the challenges that managers and leaders have, especially when they come into a leadership role for the first time, the statistics are already not all that great. 90% of people that come into a leadership or a management role for the first time have had no formal training in how to lead and have no experience in how to do it. So it's kind of it's on the job learning, and there are consequences to that. So it's important to make sure that you don't suffer from what I call management hubris. And management hubris is this, that when somebody comes into that role for the first time, and even experienced leaders that have been around for a while, they think that because they're the leader, the manager, they have to have all the answers. Well, no, they don't. And as a result, you create sort of a self-imposed weakness by insisting you have to have all the answers, when in fact you don't. The most courageous and best leaders I know of are the ones that have the courage to ask their people, tell us what we're doing wrong. And they'd be willing to listen and do something about it.
I like that. And so you're telling the audience and me, you come into a company, you want to know their core values first and foremost, then leads to mission, purpose, and why and all that, because they have to tie in together. They have to be together. My why is I want to make $5 million, which is not a great why. I'm just putting the sample. But you're going to go, so you're going to ask me, so Steve, what are your core values? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's backwards.
It is backwards. And think about core values as the baseline, the foundation of a pyramid. Core values are the baseline for the organization, and they form the basis then for your mission and then your vision, which is the top of the pyramid. And if we take those three things put together, I contend that they will communicate to anybody who's paying attention, whether inside the organization or outside the organization. Those things collectively put together should give a person a sense of what my experience is going to be when I deal with this organization. Knowing what their core values look like and what their mission and vision, it should give me a sense of what I should expect. And if there isn't alignment across those three things, and especially if there's no core, there are no core values, it's going to show up very quickly in terms of the experience, which is going to make you vulnerable compared to your competitors who do a better job of that. So it's important to, again, I can't overemphasize the importance of having those core values in place. In fact, here's a tip. If you have an organization, even if you're not a leader, but if you're just in the organization, to just check to see if people have their foot on core values, randomly select a half a dozen people in the organization from all different parts of the company, and go to them individually and ask each one of them to tell you what the core values of this organization are. It would be amazing how often, for as many people as you ask, you'll get that many different variations as to what core values are. And if you do, that tells you there needs to be some work done to get everybody aligned with what the values really are.
That's a great tip. And the other tip would be, if none of them know what the core values are, you're in really big trouble. Call Mark.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Human Capital League research several years back found that for a typical organization, only 42% of the employees even know what their own organization's values, mission, and vision are. So back to that importance of having dialogue as a leader and making sure that you're talking about those things a lot and reinforcing them. It's not enough to put it on your website or in the coffee break room for employees to see, or in your employee manual. You've got to make that stuff visible and talk about it constantly whenever possible.
Live it. So core values being misaligned or not even there could be a great reason why companies go out of business. Yeah.
Eventually it will show up. And if you don't have a foundation, I mean, it's just, I like doing analogies. Think about trying to have a building. Think about building a house without a foundation. How long do you think that building's going to last? Yeah. When the first wind comes or the first rain?
Gone. Yeah. Or do the foundation in rock, cement, or in sand?
Yeah.
You're saying no value, no core values, you're in sand, and that's not gonna last.
And if you're on sand, everybody will worship the quicksand you walk on.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting and very, very thoughtful what you're saying. So let's do this before I forget. Let's do a shout out. How can people get a hold of you to talk to you about culture, core values, and leadership?
Yeah, a couple of ways. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm under Perform Advisors, ORS, on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. Welcome a connection just to have a conversation or just to be connected and even help each other network, if nothing else. You can reach me also at my email address, which is markj@Perform Advisors, PERFORMADVISORS.com. And my phone number is 630-882-9107.
How about we give the listeners some incentive?
Okay.
The first 4 people that reach out to Mark, I will send you a $20 Amazon gift card.
Wow.
Because what you just put out there in this show so far is going to make people a lot of money. So you're a business owner, a solopreneur. You'll work with a solopreneur because I think core values in a solopreneur is just important as a $100 million company, right?
Doesn't matter the organization. If you don't have core values, you don't, again, you're working on your own quicksand. Yeah.
And it's probably worse as a solopreneur because you don't have any leeway. Your margins are so small.
Yeah.
Compared to a company with 100 million, they can make mistakes and come from, you can't make a lot of mistakes. You will, but it's a great way to protect yourself.
If nothing else, the essence of repair before failure is to have a very solid foundation for the business and core values, and having a very good and effective mission statement and vision statement. And then to make sure that the organization is living those core values and is definitely moving toward its vision by using its mission. So those things are very important. So yeah, appreciate you doing that, Steve. And yeah, the first 4 people, and they'll get my best in terms of some advice.
And that's great. Yeah, audience, what he'll do, and you've heard this if you listen to my show multiple times, he'll just reach out to me, say, hey, this person is contact me, and they mention the show. You can't just reach Mark and mention the show. Card. That's the key. Mention the show, either doing business with the Servant's Heart or me, Steve Ramona, either way. And we'll do that because money where my mouth is, that's what a servant does. If you got something good, you want to share it with the world. Don't coddle anything that's good. And I love repair before failure. I'm going to say that again, listeners, repair before failure.
Yeah.
That is not a hard thing to do. Maybe it's a hard thing, right?
Yeah, it is not hard to do. And it saves you a lot of heartache and heartburn and diminished results. So the key is to try to figure out how to repair something or fix it to prevent it. That's just a mindset that you should have as a leader and to set for your organization, that we're going to identify a problem before it ever becomes an issue. Great book I would recommend, Extreme Operational Excellence, co-written by a gentleman that I've met. He's here in the Illinois area. He's a consultant to large organizations in terms of reliability and safety. He was in 30 years in the U.S. nuclear Navy. And he was the captain of a couple of U.S. nuclear submarines. And talk about an environment where you better do repair before failure, and if things go wrong, what the consequences are. So he's written a book with a fellow nuclear Navy guy, and they talk about how to apply extreme operational excellence principles of the U.S. nuclear Navy to a business. So highly recommend that book.
Great book. Yeah, I wrote that down. Audience, and I'll put it in the show notes. You'll have access to that as well, because that's important. How does your program work? I'm a new client of yours. What's the first steps that you take to get me going with your program?
For me to ask some questions and do a lot of listening. I'm a very big believer, as with repair before failure as a mindset. My firm belief is that prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Same thing in business as in healthcare. I want to do a lot of listening, and I want to diagnose and understand before ever making a recommendation. So I may sound like I'm really asking a lot of questions and I'm being nitpicky, but that's my way of understanding your business. Now, I will tell you that one of the things that I differentiate myself compared to other consultants, and I'm not diminishing what I'm saying about the importance of having that assessment step and that diagnosis up front. But what I will tell you is that there isn't enough money any business can pay me or any other consultant to know your business as well as you and your people. for me, an investment in me is not to spend all your money to try to know your business as well as you, and then tell you what you already know. My ability and what you're investing is for me to unlock the hearts and the minds, to help you unlock the hearts and minds of the people who live the business every day. It's your employees, it's your distribution channel partners, and it's your customers. They're the people who know where the skeletons are, where the root cause challenges are to people and operational performance. So let's untap their hearts and minds, because that's where the solutions lie. Yes, I need to have some baseline in order to be effective. But what my mission is unlocking those hearts and minds, because that's where the solutions lie. And that's what I know how to do.
No, that's great. And it's such a powerful message you just put out there, because businesses are closing every day. COVID showed us that. And if you could save one or two businesses, you're changing lives.
Yeah, my passion is I have observed over 40, actually closer to 45 years, seeing businesses in all different stages, struggling to survive or literally circling the drain and heading out of existence. And it pains me to see that when all they quite often need is, an independent set of eyes and ears to help them unlock those hearts and minds and find the opportunities that exist that are just staring them right in the face, but they're so quite often hidden.
Yeah.
So that's I kind of bring that mindset and perspective to help us back off, and let's not panic. Opportunity always exists in difficulty, always. You just have to know how to look for it.
Yeah, that's so true. And listeners, he said 45 years. This is not new for Mark, and that's important to me for a coach or consultant or advisor for a company and business, or a person, whether it's a doctor. More experience, more value.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a firm believer too that the people that I engage to help me with my client work, I do not train new people on my customer's dime. I align myself and use seasoned, experienced people like myself, so that we can hit the ground running and get right at root causes and help solve them, rather than spending a lot of time training somebody. I'll leave that to the big consulting firms. Let them hire the whole army of MBAs right out of college to do that.
I like that, because your goal is everybody succeed.
Yes.
They repair before failure, or they keep growing and scaling.
Yeah. And keep from circling the drain.
Yeah, that's another good one. Well, we're running out of time here, and it's been a great show, because you really, in simple terms, are telling us some things that can help a company. If you're out there as a business owner or an upper management of a company and you guys are struggling, one of you four are going to get an Amazon gift card. But more than that, get on a discovery call. Maybe he's going to give you a tip that is going to turn your company around. Usually it doesn't happen that way. I'm not going to put it out there, but reach out to him.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so much of what we end up talking about is common sense stuff that, and I'm not saying that, people in business don't have common sense, but quite often the pressures of the day and having to deal with the putting out the fires and so on can take you off task and take you away from what your core mission is, and making sure you're living your core values. And having someone like me come in and say, okay, let's approach this from a common sense standpoint, and let's eliminate all the clutter and the noise and help people focus. So if nothing else, my whole mission is to make sure that whenever I'm in a conversation, somebody's going to come away with at least one tip that they can action on.
That's awesome, because common sense, we all lose it all the time. We're human.
We're human. Exactly right. Yeah. So just someone to kind of help, get back on an even keel, so to speak, is one of the first steps. So I appreciate that, and happy to talk to everyone, even if people just have a question. No obligation. I'm a very big believer that relationships are first and foremost, and the commercial interests will always come between people, but it doesn't have to be the first thing.
You're a true servant, and that's why I'm so happy you're on my show, and thank you for the time. Please reach out to him. I'm not begging, I'm just seeing the light here. If I had a company, he'd be the first guy I would call. He's going to fly out say, I may have said it on other shows, but this is what's fresh in my mind of what he just went through today. With that being said, I want you to give my audience one more piece of advice or a tip that's helped you through your journey that may help them through theirs.
Yeah. The two truths of human behavior. Never forget these. And these apply not only in terms of running a business, but in your personal life, with your family, with your wife, with your kids. Two truths of human behavior. What gets talked about in this world is what gets done, and what gets measured in this world is what gets done. So keep those two truths of human behavior in mind, and they will serve you well, because what gets talked about will get done, and what gets measured will get done.